Hello and welcome to Media7. I'm Russell Brown. One of the more remarkable stories in New Zealand newspaper publishing is nearing its conclusion. Tonight, we survey the short and contentious life of the independent Business Weekly. Jose Barbosa takes up the story.
In 1992, the first issue of a new weekly business paper took its place on the newsstands. This was The Independent, a paper started by two journalists, Warren Berryman and Jenni McManus, both formerly of the National Business Review. As a hard-nosed, old-school journo, Berryman had fallen out with the publisher Barry Coleman, claiming editorial interference, hence The Independent. The paper's first editorial set the tone. We will never serve as anyone's political tool, particularly when it comes to dirty politics and character assassination. We aim to do our job without fear or favour. Financially backed at arm's length by Auckland businessman Tony Timpson, the paper set about spoiling the plush upholstery of the business world. The paper provided the best coverage about the Cook Islands tax avoidance scandal, which led to the infamous Winebox inquiry into allegations of corruption in the Serious Fraud Office and Inland Revenue. Awards came their way, including Qantas Media Gongs for Best Paper in 1995 and Best Weekly Paper in 2001. Warren Berryman died from cancer in 2004, with McManus taking his position as editor. 2 years later, The Independent was sold to Fairfax. Fairfax gave it a crack, printing it on better paper and sprucing up its front page, but poor circulation coupled with diminishing ad revenue plagued the paper. Come the 1st of July, The Independent will be no more. It's part of Fairfax's major push for the online business audience, and to that end, a number of journalists from that paper will continue to provide copy. In a press release, Fairfax describes the paper's closure as a strengthening of their business journalism, which sounds like the kind of self-satisfied PR that would make someone like Warren Berryman reach for a gun. Everything has its time, but in the case of The Independent, it was time well utilised. They created some of the strongest journalism in a small and difficult market. Not a lot of publications could say the same. So here's to you, Independent. Cheers for that.
With me now are two people who were both there at The Independent's birth. Current editor Fiona Rotherham and co-founder Jenni McManus. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Fiona, let's start with the news. Let's recap what has happened and what happens next.
So the decision's been made to close the paper after quite a long and deliberate thinking about it and looking at all the options available, and obviously it's a decision I'm quite personally sad about, having been there at the outset. But we've got two more issues and we close on 1st of July. We're planning a bit of a special issue for the last one, encapsulating some of that 18 years of history and good journalism we've produced. But
all the people working on the paper at the moment, all the journalists working on the paper at the moment, will be re-employed by Fairfax?
The 8 permanent staff journalists will be doing online through Business Day and also the Business Day sections in Fairfax's dailies.
So what's happening here? Is this a kind of a business hub for all the other Fairfax publications?
Yes, that's right. We produce the big national stories, the big reads and that sort of thing, and also the Auckland News. So we're really planning a big push online, I think would be fair to say, doing more intraday filing, that type of thing.
From what you said just then, I get the impression this decision has been coming for quite some time.
Yeah, it's been thought about for quite a while, that's true.
Jenni, how do you feel? This is a question I always hate people asking on television, but I feel
hate
bound to ask it.
Too, Russell.
How do you feel? Sad, angry?
Sad and disappointed, I think. I really can't go much further than that.
What else could have been done, do you think?
That's a hard one. When we sold the paper in 2006, we were assured of big marketing pushes, big advertising pushes, big circulation pushes, and the reality was somewhat different, I feel.
I get the impression that, and the fact that we're doing this show, I think, indicates that there was something more than just a publication there. That there's an emotional tie, particularly amongst people who've worked for the paper.
Oh, yeah, it was just like your baby, really. I mean, we were there right at the start and, you know, the 18 years were quite tumultuous. We broke some fantastic stories and as all things do, it came at a huge personal cost, but there was a huge personal gain from it too, because when I think about it, not that many people get the chance to do what they really want to do in life, and we did.
And you, Fiona, I gather, pretty much demanded to be employed at the beginning.
Yes, well, I'd been working at National Business Review with Jenni and Warren, and they employed Nikki Mando, and I was pregnant at the time with my second child, and was quite irate they'd employed her and not me, so I bailed Jenny up about it, and she said, well, it's Wog's decision, but, it's because you work part-time. So, because I bailed him up at her 40th birthday party and said, oi, what are you thinking? And he said, oh, fingers, I don't want part-time workers. And I'm sort of... Anyway, 5 minutes later, he'd said yes.
What did you get out? What did you get out of that? I wonder whether there's something particular that you get out of working for an owner-operated publication.
I don't know if it's so much owner-operated as that start-up mentality is quite exciting, and I think that's true in any start-up company, whether it's publishing or anything else. There's a sense of adventure, and you put up with things that you wouldn't put up with in a corporate. I shared a telephone for the first 6 months. Nikki and I used to fight over it like a scrap over a bone. She'd get off and I'd grab it. I didn't have a computer for a year, so those sort of things you wouldn't normally put up with unless you've got that sense of purpose and sense of sort of shared commitment.
Now, Jenny, this is a story I keep hearing: people having to share computers, only one computer in the office having the internet. What was your thing against computers?
Well, no thing against computers. We've never had a thing against computers. They're a very good delivery tool of content. It's just we couldn't afford more than one computer. And Warren had it. No, we did have a few more than that.
I recall a notorious job ad where something along the lines of, we don't want anyone who thinks you get a story out of a computer. We want people who go down to the pub and get real stories.
And that is the big challenge of online, to be able to still get out there and keep the same journalistic values that we've had for decades of fairness and accuracy and all that sort of stuff while we deliver quickly. And yeah, I get online. I mean, Fiona and I both started in radio. We get immediacy, but it can't overtake content. It's just a delivery mechanism. You go back to 2004, which is when Warren died. There wasn't the same amount of online delivery as there is now. It was quite a different age. Things have changed a hell of a lot in the past 5 or 6 years. We did, though, turn ourselves into a daily. We did recognise we used to lose good stories all the time because we'd have them at the start of the week, and then eventually some sleepy person at the Herald would wake up about 4 days later and the thing would be broken in the Herald. So we used to get a bit sick of that. So what we did was create the Daily Business Brief, which was our initial attempt at going online, which, when we did it, I think was about 2002, 2003, was quite novel. So every day we would produce at the end of the day a list of about 10 business briefs that we'd fire out to all our subscribers. And that turned us effectively into a daily paper. So we were there right at the start. We were onto it. We didn't have any problems with being onto it.
Do you think you would have been online?
Oh, I think we'd just go online. I don't think we'd worry about a print edition at all. We would just stick the masthead online and go for it like that. Because all your costs are in print and production.
So
salaries as well, but yeah.
That you put the content online instead of printing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that...
But you keep the masthead.
That was an interesting point that Jenny made before about immediacy.
Yep.
And is that really what you're tasked with doing now in this new Fairfax hub?
That's an element, but it's not the only element, I don't think. My vision for online is about providing that opinion and analysis that's was part of the independent makeup as well.
That was always a very important part.
Demand.
Yeah, so I think it's not one thing, it's many things that you bring to it, and I think reader connectivity and that type of thing is really important as well. So it's how you bring all those elements in and create that community of readers.
I thought one interesting thing about the Independent was always that you had people who weren't journalists, including Warren himself. Wasn't a trained journalist.
He started as journalists.
Is there still a place for that? I mean, in the way that it's going to be reshaped for Fairfax now, will you still have those people who are experts in outside sectors?
Yep.
Not Chalky's in that.
Chalky would fall into that category, yeah. So we definitely.
So Chalky lives.
Chalky lives, and some of the other columnists will as well online, but not necessarily in the papers.
Jenny, what do you think's been lost?
What I hope will not be lost is the investigative process that we tried to set up when we set up the Independent. I mean, it is high risk, it is high cost, it's high energy, it's high everything. But the way we saw it was it's not an end to itself, it's actually a process that you bring to every story you write. And I hope that we're going to have the time and the ability to do decent work still, and we're not just rewriting press releases or rejigging company announcements and making a couple of calls and fleshing them out, because I don't think that is journalism. I still think that journalism isn't done staring at a computer in an office. And I must say, Warren and I visited the Australian Financial Review about 10 years ago when we were in Sydney, and that's a paper we had a lot of admiration. I still have a lot of admiration for it. We walked in there and we thought we'd stumbled into an insurance office. I mean, there were these lines of grey people staring at computers. It was utterly silent. And we thought, that is not a real newsroom. Newsrooms are loud, they're chaotic, there's phones going all the time. That is what we bought into. And that's the sort of newsroom we ran. There was a lot of discipline under the chaos, but that's what it was all about.
We'll have a drink to that idea later on. Jenni McManus and Fiona Rotherham, thank you for your time. We'll take a break now and come back soon with the blokes and their stories.